All right, guys, we have a special guest on the show today. He is our resident Longhorn, Matt. He's from Texas Platinum. He's my brother. You guys have seen him on the channel before if you've been around for a while. If not, he has his own channel, Texas Platinum. They do great work. Pretty rational Longhorn fans to keep it even keeled. It's good to get information from him. But we're going to have an interesting little task today with our little Longhorn brother. We're going to pick our records, but he's going to pick A&M's record, and I'm going to pick Texas's record. So we're going to go game by game. I'm going to do his school. He's going to do my school. Rivals picking each other's record and see how the opposing fan base shakes out a win-loss prediction on the year. It should be interesting. I think we'll probably review some fall camp stuff and then get right into the schedule. We'll go week to week for each schedule and see who comes out with the better record, baby. So we'll see what happens. It should be a lot of fun, guys. Like and subscribe if you like this kind of content. I'm going to keep bringing you stuff through the entire preseason, leading into the Notre Dame week and beyond. It'll be a lot of fun. Thanks for being here, guys. Let's get into it. All right, Matt, welcome back to the channel. We got to talk about the schedules. Football is right around the corner. It's super exciting. But I want to get a couple updates from you. We talked a couple months ago on this channel, kind of previewed Texas, previewed our game that's still several months away. We have the season starting soon, but our game's further down the road. But I want to hear about camp. I want to hear how things are developing. I had a few questions for the first time we talked. How's that secondary looking? And I guess we should start with the elephant in the room, and that's the running back room. How's that thing recovering after losing Baxter and now Clark?
Yeah, no, the running back room is definitely the biggest issue right now, I would say, with fall camp. It's just a little concerning. Texas is now down to 3 guys with Jaden Blue, who we all think is going to be a star, but then behind him you got Trey Wisner, who's also a skinnier running back, not really a short yardage running back, and then you have Jarrett Gibson, who's huge as a 5-star freshman, but doesn't have the experience. And behind that you got walk-ons and linebackers moving to running back and tight ends. So not much.
So the rumors are true. The rumors are true. Anthony Hill moving to running back.
Yeah, I've heard that. I've actually read that.
No way. Wow.
Only a goal line running back, which I think he was a great running back at Denton Ryan. So I think that'd be a good idea every now and then. He played Tavondre Sweat and Byron Murphy in short yardage positions on offense last year. So I think Ant Hill needs to carry that baton forward.
That'd be pretty cool to see. Yeah, and I'll give you credit. Before we even got into the injury stuff, when we talked last, you were hyping up Blue as maybe the most talented player on the team. But would you say Blue or Wisner have like that bell cow build to take a beating? Because I think Baxter was a little bit bigger than them, if I'm remembering correctly.
I think Blue definitely does more so than Wisner. Blue's like a stout guy. He's not very wiry. Like he's pretty built, and but then again, he doesn't have the experience like Baxter has. He came on late last year, but he was like a 5-star guy till he foregoed his senior year of high school to like prepare for college, which dropped him in the rankings a lot. But he was the number 1 running back in the country, if you remember, number 1 running back until he did that. Then his rankings dropped. But he looked really good for us last year. He was just so dynamic. But he's more of a home run hitter, fast speed guy. And in the SEC, it might be a problem, day in and day out, that wear and tear.
Well, you still have that O-line, and you still have Steve Sarkisian. So I feel like you could probably make it work. Our thing with our running back situation is we'll be okay if the O-line's good. I mean, if we have a bad O-line and we're down a man, that's probably going to make us a little bit worse. But if the O-line, develops, takes their steps forward, I think Moss and Daniels can perform well enough. Kind of like you're saying with Blue, I think for us, Ruben represented that home run threat. Although we didn't really see it consistently last year, we were really hoping for that step forward. Obviously, 2nd overall running back in that same class as Baxter. I think he had back-to-back 2,000 yards his junior and senior years and just touchdown machine. Obviously, we're missing out on that upside, but it's kind of weird we're both in that same boat, both with running back rooms with 3 scholarship players currently in them. But we move on. How's that secondary looking real quick before we get into the schedule stuff?
Honestly, the whole defense looks really good from what I can tell, especially the D-line. But secondary, we've heard good reports about Andrew Makuba, the guy that's played at Clemson for 3 years as a starter. Jahdae Barron has moved over to corner, which I like because we got Jalen Gilbo behind him at star. Now Gilbo is like a new stud that's been around the program for a while, but he's been injured. But he started as a freshman a couple years ago over Barron, and now he's healthy. So he's going to start at star. Barron goes out to corner next to Manny Muhammad. So that gives you a lot of talent back there, plus Derek Williams and Makuba on the back end. So I really like Our starting secondary, Gavin Holmes has looked good too, as a number 3 option, I guess, at corner. But it sounds great on paper, but I'd like to see it in person. But then again, I think our secondary problems were kind of oversold last year, just based on the amount of passes we saw versus run. If you look into the deep stats, like our pass second defense wasn't that bad. It was just everybody abandoned the run immediately against us because they couldn't get 2 yards. So it was just skewed. But I think we're going to have a pretty good secondary this year. I don't know how great they'll be, but good enough, I would say.
Yeah, and I was actually having this discussion, I think, a week ago, talking about the best defenses that A&M will play this year, and just kind of getting into the schedule talk. Notre Dame is clearly the best defense we play. But after that, I'm pretty sure it's Texas. I don't think it's LSU. I'm really low on the Missouri defense this year, losing their coordinators, losing these amazing weapons that they had in the pass rush to the NFL. Those guys are looking good in camp right now for the NFL, but they lost all that. So I really think it's Texas and then maybe South Carolina and Florida kind of behind there, maybe Auburn as the best defenses we play. So you'll give us a good test late in the year. But let's get into the schedule talk. So as I said at the top of the show, Matt's going to predict A&M's record, and I'm going to predict Texas's record. I'm going to put the schedules on screen. We're going to go week to week. We'll do both teams' game for each given week, and we'll move down, obviously ending with the last game of the year. He's going to pick that one. I'm going to pick it. So you're going to get a little sneak peek about my overall A&M preview when I pick that last game. But do you have any questions about developments with A&M? Anything you need to know last minute before we get into the schedule talk, or are you set?
Yeah, I want to know if y'all are still believing in the Connor Weigman train for Heisman and all that. I know A&M fans think he's like going to be a top 3 quarterback in the nation this year. I just want to know what the fall camps reports are saying.
I'll say this. If he's back exactly how he was when he was playing before, he'll be in that discussion. If he's slowed by the injury, there's a chance it takes too long for him to get back into the swing of things and let him be himself. But by reports, he's moving around in camp real well, and it looks really, really promising. Now, the one thing is we don't know if we have enough home run threats on the offense to really pad his numbers up. But he's a good player, and there's some good players around him. I just don't know if we have that big play guy. So maybe a guy like Terry Bussey could be featured. Maybe some young guys could be featured. We're going to need big things from Moose Muhammad, who has not really found consistency in his career. But as far as Connor, as long as he's 100% and he's not suffering lingering effects or confidence issues getting back into things, yeah, he's the man. Anything else?
No, I agree. I think he's really good, at least from what I've seen in limited snaps. So I'm excited to see how good he is this year.
Yep. Hopefully he plays the full season, because if he does, he has a great season ahead. I think, of course, O-line is going to be the caveat over every discussion we have about A&M. But I think things are looking relatively positive in that department. All right. We're going to go game to game, week to week. Week 1, right around the corner, 3 weeks away. Super, super excited. I feel like time has slowed down right now, but that's another discussion. Y'all are playing Colorado State. I'm just going to give you the win there, and then I'll give you the floor about the A&M Notre Dame game if you want to give a few words on that.
I'm glad that college game is going to that game and not Georgia Clemson or a neutral site. That's just so pure college football.
Oh, yeah.
Kyle Field and Notre Dame. That's going to be so much fun to watch. Prime time. I think this game's going to be kind of a very low-scoring game. I've read that A&M's offense is kind of starting off a little slow, which makes sense. I mean, Mike Elko's a defensive-minded guy. The defense is going to come on first, I would imagine. And week 1, just in general, offenses start off slow. So I think it's going to be a very low-scoring game, but I do think y'all are going to love me for this. I do think A&M's going to win this game. I just don't trust Notre Dame to win in an SEC environment like that, because they really don't play in environments like that very often, and they don't play talent like Notre Dame, like A&M has, especially on the D line very often. I think it's good problems to their O line, even though they're a O line factory. They lost their left tackle due to injury, so I think Nick Skorton and Shamar Turner are going to create some issues, and I think Notre A&M just scraps out a ugly. I don't know if it's ugly, but a low-scoring win. And, starts off the Elko era with a boom.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I hope we win it, but I think a low-scoring affair is probably the most likely outcome looking at that game right now. If A&M somehow does put up around 30 points, though, I'm going to spread so much Aggie propaganda, because that means that the offense is good enough to score that much against the best defense we're going to play all year, and you win that game, I'll be I'll be changing some evaluations after we see that. But it's going to be a lot of fun. I'll be there, and you have us winning it, so that makes me feel pretty good. All right, we're going to turn the tables here. Week 2, we have McNeese. You're at Michigan. Do you want to go ahead and give your prediction for our game real quick?
Yeah, I think A&M will beat McNeese, the McNeese Cowboys.
Breaking. Breaking. Yeah, and you know what? Outside chances at college game day at McNeese. You know why? R.C. Slocum graduated from McNeese. The storylines write themselves. All right, going into your game at Michigan. You go into this game?
I'll be there. $600 for a nosebleed, but I'm gonna go anyways.
Ooh, this is a game time decision for me. This is one of the games on your schedule when I look at it, I go back and forth with. Obviously, they're going to have a top 5 defense this year. I think that's pretty set in stone. I think that's a very likely outcome for them. You're going to have a Sarkisian coached offense. You are breaking in some new weapons at the receiver position and some, raw players at running back, I guess you would call them raw, unseasoned a little bit, but talented. I think you might also be in store for a low-scoring affair there because I don't know if your defense is upper echelon, but it's definitely going to be effective, at least to some degree, versus Michigan, who looks to be a pretty much total reset on offense. Alex Orji, good reports out of camp for him with the passing ability. Surprisingly good reports from what I've heard so far. Matt, don't hate me. I have you losing this game. I have Texas going on the road and losing Michigan week 2. I think that's an early test. I think it's too early with the chemistry that needs to be formed between Ewers and this receiver group. It's going to be a close, good game. That O-line is going to let you be productive, even though you're breaking in some new players. But I think they win a very close scoring, low-scoring game and something like 21-17, 21-24, something like that. But I have you losing that game. And I think when I look at your schedule, that game, obviously, OU, Georgia, and A&M are the ones that stand out. And I don't think you get through them unscathed. I think this is a loss for y'all. So, sorry, I couldn't return the favor with the early non-con win, but I have you starting 1-1. You have us starting 2-0. You have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, no, I have a funny feeling about that game too. I hope I'm wrong, but I also kind of have this weird feeling that we're going to lose this game. But Texas O-line versus Michigan D-line, that's going to be a great matchup to watch. And you know, in games like that, it comes down to the quarterback a lot of the time, and I really trust Quinn Ewers in an environment like that, and also in Kyle Field down the road. I think Ewers is the guy you want in a situation like that. So that gives me hope. But yeah, I mean, it's defending champs. They got talent. That defense is pretty much all back.
Yeah, and I won't. Yeah, and I won't say this is like an extremely confident pick. I could definitely see you winning, largely because of Quinn, largely because of that offensive line. That's going to travel regardless. We've seen it, and it's the same group there moving into this year. I didn't even mention the home field environment, but that's going to, maybe have effect on some of those younger guys, the running backs, maybe breaking in those receivers, harder to communicate, slower processing speed for some of the newer guys. And by then, they're still pretty new. You get through fall camp, you have one game under your belt, but week 2, first big-time game on the road, I'm just going to slightly edge Michigan there. But close game. The thing that pisses me off about this game, though, big noon. Come on now. Make this a night game in the big house. I mean, ugh. And A&M kicks off at 12:45, so I'm going to watch y'all's first quarter. I'm shifting focus. I can't even watch this game. But anyway, that's going to be done pretty soon, hopefully. Maybe not for Michigan, but for y'all. But all right, week 3, another lopsided kind of comparison. UTSA, you got to be careful. Jeff Traylor's my man. He loves fajitas, I've heard, being a San Antonio boy. But I have y'all beating UTSA. We're on the road at Florida, and this is one of the probably the most highly debated game on our schedule right now that's not Notre Dame, that's not Texas. This is a game that really stands out for Aggies because Sunbelt Billy, obviously, he's on his last leg there. Over-under prediction by Vegas of 4.5 games. They look at this as one of the games they can win. They look at this as a game on their schedule. It's early in the year. We still have something to play for. Maybe they beat Miami, and they're feeling good. Maybe they lose to Miami, and they're feeling desperate but still alive. This is a game that they can absolutely win, and it's, in my mind, it's a toss-up. Where do you go with it?
Yeah, I also like fajitas like Jeff Traylor, but this game right here, this one's the one, Notre Dame, I've said this before on this channel, Notre Dame or Florida, you're going to split, and I think it's more likely that you lose the Florida game. Florida, Graham Mertz is getting a lot of dark horse Heisman talk, and a lot of analysts are saying he had a great year last year, which I didn't see personally, but I do know he was talented out of high school, so I think Billy Napier kind of puts it together offensively with Graham Mertz this year in year 3 because he has to. Otherwise, he's going to get fired.
Yep.
And I do like that Florida D line. They do have some talent at wide receiver. So I'm going to take Florida here. It's hard to win in the Swamp. It's hard, especially if A&M wins their first 2 games. They're going to be like top 15, top 10 coming into a probably unranked Florida, who probably be undefeated as well. It's going to be like just an electric atmosphere, and that's going to be a spot for them to, steal one. And Elko, I think he's a great coach, but it's just hard to go like year one. You're going to take losses in the SEC. You're not going to go unscathed in year one. So I'm taking Florida here, but it's going to be definitely a very close game.
Yeah, it'll be a battle. It'll be brutal. That's top tier SEC environment right there. They're going to still be alive. Like you said, if A&M beats Notre Dame, even if A&M loses to Notre Dame, it's a conference game that crowd will be up for, with their team still very much alive. And even if they weren't alive, they'd be there for the first quarter. That's just how these proud fan bases go. But man, I have no problem with you calling that a loss. In my mind, with our schedule, as winnable as these home games are, these manageable road games, they're not gimmies by any means, and this is definitely one. All right, so we're both 2-1 going into week 4. You have ULM, we have Bowling Green. Y'all are winning that game.
Y'all are also winning that game.
Moving on.
Although,
all right,
Bowling Green's good. Bowling Green's good, I've heard. So hopefully it's not an App State situation for y'all.
I think that was an us thing, and I'd like to believe that Elko gets the team ready for the layup games like that, especially in year one. Who knows? Could be a big hangover from the big game before, maybe a slow start. But I see A&M. I see Elko getting this team ready to give their best effort in every game. Doesn't always equate to a win, but it should against a team like Bowling Green. All right, week 4. We're both 3-1. I'm sorry, week 5. Y'all got Mississippi State at home. Is that your first SEC game, Mississippi State at home?
Yes.
And we have Arkansas in Jerry World. You can start with the floor. Arkansas, always a wacky game. How do you feel about that one for the Aggies?
Look, you said it 100 times. I'll say it too. I like Arkansas, but they're not a threat. I've spent a lot of time out in Beaver Lake, and I really do enjoy Northwest Arkansas. But
Me too.
They just don't have the talent right now. I know they got some players on the D line, Landon Jackson, guys like that. And Sam Pittman is a good players coach. He can get a crappy team up for a game like A&M and keep them in that game. But aside from like those 1 or 2 years, like Arkansas just kind of always loses to A&M. So, I mean, I'm just going to bank on history. And I think at this point, Sam Pittman's probably already fired pretty much. So I'm taking A&M probably in a big A&M win here. I'm going to say a blowout. And then Sam Pittman's pretty much done after this game.
Yeah, I never feel fully confident about it, no matter what's going on, but that makes me feel pretty good. Yeah, they bring some stuff back. I mean, they obviously lose Rocket Sanders. They lose KJ. I think they bring every player in their receiver room back, which is interesting. They rebuilt their O-line in the portal. Not Billy Napier, wrong hot seat coach. Sam Pittman should be able to put together a good O-line, but with so many new pieces, it was pretty rough last year. A&M's D-line should put some work in. But y'all have Mississippi State. I'll keep it brief. I'm not high on Mississippi State this year. I think they're in full reset mode. I think y'all should be able to handle them at home, maybe like a 42-13 type of game. So, yeah, moving off of that one, I don't think they're a threat. They're the second lowest FPI team in the conference behind only Vandy, or in front of only Vandy. Y'all handle them. You get the bye. We have a big one, Missouri at home. I think I touched on Missouri earlier in this video. Really, really good offense, top tier, top of the line offense. Every weapon back besides their heart and soul running back, whose name is escaping me right now. But they get a big dude in the portal. They should be able to rebound there nicely. Every piece you would ever want on an offense, that's back. But defensively, full reset, like we said. Coaching staff, defensive coordinator, LSU, they're all there. And all the pass rushers and pieces and secondary starters, most of them, I think 8 starters are gone. And more guys in their depth are gone, in their rotation are gone. They bring some rotational guys back, but it's just such a strong reset. How you feeling about that game?
I've been conflicted on this one and the LSU game. I do like Missouri a lot. I think that offensively they bring back a lot. Obviously Luther Burden, Brady Cook. They do lose their running back, so I want to say. And
Schrader, I think was his name, came back to me.
But I do like, for Missouri's perspective, how this game's an early kick. So I think if this was like night game in Coppell, it would be a little different, but I'm going to take Missouri to win this game. Missouri's kind of the destiny team, I think, looking at the schedules of the SEC. They got a beautiful layup, a nice runway till this game, so they're going to be focused on this game, whereas A&M's already been through some wars with Florida, Notre Dame, even Arkansas maybe.
Yeah.
So I think Missouri puts all their eggs into this basket and pulls out a win. They just got talent. Luther Burden's going to be really hard to stop, and I like their O-line. So I don't know about their defense, but I think Missouri finds a way to win this game, and A&M falls to 3-2, or 4-2, 3-2. Either way, 2 losses.
Yeah, it's very, very much on the table. It's going to be a shootout type of game, probably. And if you get into that kind of game and A&M's defense isn't able to stop a top tier offense, yeah, you could be looking at a high scoring affair where they come out on top. I think it's a game where A&M can put up points, so who knows what could happen, but definitely one that could go either way. So I have no problem with you predicting that right now. I think that's 4-2, isn't it? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, it's 4-2. You have A&M at 4-2. We're going into a bye, and more on Missouri's schedule leading up to that game. So, like you said, Murray State, Buffalo, Boston College, Vandy, all at home. Bye week, A&M, UMass. So this game stands alone for Missouri early in the year. But who knows? Maybe they're not tested enough. But yeah, to your point, it's a game that they could definitely win at noon at Kyle Field. All right, moving on to the next week. We get the bye. You have the big one. Boomer Sooner, OU, Cotton Bowl. Maybe I'll go to this one since we have the bye week. Man, this is always a toss-up in my mind. I think anything could happen any given year. And Texas has the unique situation that you play 3 rivals that hate you in one year, like serious top-tier rivals, at least in their eyes, in Arkansas and objectively in OU and A&M. That makes each one of those games kind of a tricky scenario for you. OU might be sneaky good this year. I think they're quietly better than a lot of people are giving them credit for. Their defense is obviously going to be very solid under Venables. I don't know much about quarterback whose name's escaping me. Help me out real quick.
Jackson Arnold.
I know he throws a lot of picks. I know he's super athletic. I know he can make a lot of things happen. I'm going to give you the edge versus OU, even though you have Georgia looming the next week. I think you just out-talent them where they are in their current trajectory as a program. But I do think Venables is building something to have some level of success, maybe a 9-8 win year this year for them. But I think you come out on top at the neutral site. Moving on. So you're what? You're 1 loss at this point?
Yep.
You're 4-1. 5-1. Sorry, it's hard to keep track as we're moving along. All right. Big one for y'all. Y'all have UGA at home. We have at Mississippi State. Do you want to do the at Mississippi State one real quick?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to win in Starkville, but A&M wins this game. They're probably one of the worst teams in the SEC. I think Jeff Lebby was a good hire, but I don't trust in Blake Shapen at quarterback, and I think it'll take a second to get them decent. So A&M probably big win here.
Yeah. I agree with you. And it'll be nice to get over that Starkville hump, that Mississippi schools hump. Even though they're in a down year, I'll take a win versus a Mississippi school. Like, I need water. Like, I really need that. And I think it happens this year. But all right, the next week, your game, the same week, Georgia at home. One of the games of the year, obviously new opponents, new conference mates. If you look at Georgia, they lose some of the flashy pieces like Bowers, McConkey. They lose some pieces on that defense. They're young on defense in certain areas, but that youth, they're like 2 deep 5-star talent in the secondary, 5-star talent littered on that defensive line. Bring back the quarterback, another Joe Moore finalist looking offensive line, running backs, 5-star running backs that are going to make a name for themselves. You don't know their names yet. You're going to learn them. Really high on their tight end room. Names are escaping me right now. Urasek from Stanford, one of the best tight ends in the country coming to Georgia. And then the guy that was already there, great blocking tight end, name's escaping me right now, Oscar Delp. They reload so well. This is the most talented team in the country. I think, I don't know if it's significantly, but clearly to me, top to bottom, most talented team. They're going to DKR. You're a talented team in your own right. You have enough to beat anybody in the country, but you're coming off of an emotional big-time game versus OU. You haven't been able to sleep, breathe, eat anything for the last 2 weeks in a row, but I think you beat them at home in DKR. I think y'all get up like you haven't gotten up for a game in a long time, kind of like how y'all did versus Bama the 2 years before. I know you'll already have had an SEC introduction before this in the Mississippi State game, but come on, it's a down year for Mississippi State. This is your first real in SEC rodeo that's not OU, a team you've already been playing. I think you get the best possible version of Texas you'll see all year in this game, and I think y'all win it. I think y'all beat Georgia at home. I think you'll get through that 1-2 OU Georgia combo unscathed. And I know that's probably a unpopular opinion amongst Aggies, but I just see y'all defending home turf in that first big primetime SEC environment. By then, those receivers are well broken in. No one's young anymore by then. Hopefully you're healthy. I mean, you have to stay healthy, obviously, but you're deep there. O-line, you have everything you need to beat them, and you will.
I like it. I like it.
All right.
I agree.
You agree. All right. Y'all get the at Vandy gift. What a scheduling gift you've gotten. That's so beautiful to get the at Vandy. That's just like a layup. But I think they give you trouble. I think they keep it close for a quarter, but I think you end up winning by like 5 scores. I bet it's a close first quarter, though. That's my prediction. That's my bold prediction. Close for 1 quarter at Vandy. You're not used to that SEC grind yet. You don't know what it's like, but Vandy's going to scare you for a couple minutes, and then you're going to blow them out. But how do you feel about A&M playing LSU at home? It's kind of a similar feel to that Missouri game, another toss-up home game. Strong offense. Defense should be somewhat improved. They get all the coaches that made that Missouri defense so good the year before. 11th in sacks, Missouri was last year. LSU recruits well, but a lot of that talent is really young on that defense. I don't know. How do you see this one playing out?
Man, I feel like either Mike Elko or Brian Kelly's going to own the other during this series, at least while they're coaching at these schools. I don't know who it's going to be. I kind of lean towards Mike Elko owning Brian Kelly, so I'm going to pick A&M to win this game. I mean, LSU is just such a question mark. I know people are hyping up Garrett Nussmeier as this, the prodigy to their Heisman, Jaden Daniels, and but I just don't trust Brian Kelly. It's felt very wonky at LSU. I feel like he patches together average teams to be like 8-9 wins, and I don't trust that defense at all. I know they hired Bo Davis from Texas, which kind of hurts us on the D-line, but
true.
And they still have Harold Perkins, but they have some good players on the O-line like Will Campbell. But I just think A&M's more of a complete roster, 1 through 22, and I think that shows up. And A&M gets up for this. A&M really views LSU as a rival, similar to how they view Texas, I would say. I don't know if LSU feels quite the same way about A&M. And the home team always wins, at least recently. The home team's won every of these games since like 2019, I want to say. So I'm going to take Kyle Field, 2018.
Yeah, reasonable prediction. I feel similarly. I don't know. Their offense is going to be bolstered by a great offensive line. I mean, yours might be a tick better, but theirs is right there with the best offensive lines in the SEC. It's going to be Georgia, y'all. Then I would say LSU's in a third. Maybe they could that they can all move around. Those are the top 3 O lines in the SEC. That should keep them in any game. But I think A&M has the D line to go against a team that probably projects well at receiver, but needs a lot to pan out. You have Kyron Lacey. You have some guys you're very excited for behind him, but nothing proven. No one's really gotten no one's had a regular rotation spot at all in college behind him. So we'll have to see how that plays out. O-line should help with everything. Yeah, man. I don't know about that defense again. Even if they improve, man, they were like 120 something in the country overall total yards given up. And if they improve, they're like 80th in the country. Is that good enough? I don't know. And losing Jaden Daniels on top of that, I don't know. But all right, I have y'all at 7-1 at this point. Y'all are going into a bye week. You have us at 6-2 at this point. We're going on the road at South Carolina, team that stays scrappy. I think if you look up the word scrappy in like a college football encyclopedia, Shane Beamer's face is probably right there. That man's like the Scrappy Doo of college football. They bring back some interesting pieces on defense, pieces on offense. They have Rocket Sanders now. They have the big fella Lenore Sellers. He's like a 6'3", 245-pound quarterback. They're going to be able to do some stuff in the running game. I don't know if they have the explosive weapons outside of these two receiver wise. O-line was one of the worst I've ever seen last year. How much better can it be in 1 year? There's a path where they have a pretty strong running game, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know. How do you feel about that game?
Yeah, I'm not going to forgive that O line for the monstrosity that they put on the field last year. I can't forget that.
It was comical at times. I mean, honestly, it was bad.
Yeah, I just no matter how much portal work they did or coaches they hired, that remnants is still there. And I know it's hard to win in Williams-Brice Stadium. I know they got a good home field, but A&M wins this game. Probably a close, scary game, but I think A&M with the Wigman, if he's healthy, gets the win.
Yeah, I would definitely agree in the close, scary department. I'm not ready to give my prediction there, but that's definitely a game that stands out to me. All these road games besides Mississippi State, I'm not fully confident in any of them. But yeah, I think if A&M wins that one, it is a close game. You have us at 7-2 going into our second bye week. We get our 2 bye weeks late, which feels pretty good given the new structure. If we somehow wiggle into the playoff, that'll come in handy getting those late season rests. But y'all are playing Florida at home. We talked about Florida already. Is DJ Lagway the quarterback by this point? Are they healthy in the running back room at this point? Has it fallen off the ship at this point? I think there are so many question marks later in the year for Florida. I just don't see a world where they beat you. Although you will be playing a talented team. And here's the thing about Texas that I haven't mentioned yet, and it really starts to come into play with this game, these next 3 games for y'all: Florida, Arkansas, and Kentucky. Last year, I think pretty much over your last 10 years in the Big 12, you seem to play down to opponents of lesser talent and lesser capabilities. Now, I don't know if having the name Florida and seeing Florida Gators across the line of scrimmage from y'all will bring a better version of Texas out of you. But if you slip like you occasionally did versus Houston and Iowa State and Kansas, and maybe you won those games, but sometimes they were closer than they should be, you might not be able to get over the hump versus some of these more talented teams. I do see you beating Florida. I think Florida gets the best. You get the best. That brings another level out of you. It's off a bye. It's a big name program. I think you get a good enough version of Texas. But does that factor scare you at all when analyzing Texas going into the year?
Yeah, that's like the biggest concern with the SEC. If we just like treat these teams like Big 12 teams, down the stretch, you'll lose some of those games, especially like Florida with a bunch of 4- and 5-star guys. So yeah, definitely concerning.
Yeah. And this is the stretch. It's an interesting stretch for y'all right here because the next week, y'all are 8-1 at this point, in my opinion. You have Arkansas on the road the next week. We have New Mexico State at home. If you want to just quickly verbalize your prediction there.
That's a win for the Aggies.
We're not going to pull any kind of Auburn nonsense. We're not going to pull any of that Auburn stuff. We play Auburn the next week. So, yeah, we're not going to lose to them. Anyway, at Arkansas is interesting. I don't know. Once again, same conversation as Florida. Has it fallen off the rails by this point in the year for them? I mean, is Taylor Green still have any confidence left playing behind a somewhat unknown or shaky offensive line? Is that defense still holding together? Have they sustained injuries? They don't seem to be the most deep team on defense. I think they could keep it close, but I could see you winning by, 17 points, pulling away at the end. I think this game's I don't know if you would agree with this, but I think this game remains pretty close through halftime. And then your depth, just your superior talent, your size shines through at the end. But it's not a game that I can't see Arkansas winning.
Right. Yeah, I was there the last time in Vietnam when Texas played in 2021, and that was not fun. That was just, that city was like possessed that entire weekend, I want to say, and that stadium was too. So luckily it's an 11 a.m. kick, so that should help. But yeah, I mean, Arkansas is not very good, but that could get dicey.
Yeah, absolutely. And this year it's Vietnam. Next year it's Stark Vegas. So you get to go some weird road environments early in your SEC journey. All right. Y'all are 9-1. We are 8-2 going into the second to last game of the year. Y'all face Kentucky at home. We're on the road at Auburn. Weird place to play. Built on an Indian burial ground was Jordan-Hare Stadium. We'll start with your side of things. Kentucky, always a physical team, always a team that seems to have a strong running attack. Brock Vandergriff from Georgia at the helm. They have like one known commodity at receiver, a couple other unknowns. I think this is another game that could stay close for a quarter or two, but it's a game that I see you guys out talenting and winning down the stretch on the road before A&M. this is a game that I would potentially have you on major upset alert. No look ahead factor. Hopefully that's, contained. I think y'all win a relatively close game versus Kentucky. How do you feel about our game at Auburn?
I feel like this is an obvious game where, a lot of people will pick Auburn here because it's just like a letdown. It's hard to win Jordan Hare regardless. Plus the fact that you play Texas, and plus like just not even that. It's just like late in the year in the SEC, like that's a grind, and it's hard to win any road game, much less in that context. So I'm going to fall into that trap, though. I'm going to pick Auburn here.
Okay.
I just like we've talked about this. I really do like their coach, Hugh Freeze, and Josh Pate's been saying their defense looks a lot better now with their D-line depth. And Peyton Thorne, I just don't understand how he's still their quarterback, but I would imagine he's going to be better this year. And they get talent too. They're kind of like Florida. They get 4 and 5 stars too occasionally. So I feel bad because I don't think A&M's a worse team than Auburn. I think A&M's better than Auburn, but it's just like in the SEC, like you said, like it's just hard to win all these games. You're going to take losses. So I'm going to take Auburn in some crazy Indian burial ground miracle to win this game.
Yeah. I'll say this kind of to oppose that. I agree. They could definitely win this game, and it's a very scary spot for A&M. I like that we have the 2 late season buys leading into this home stretch. I like that we're coming off of bye New Mexico State, then at Auburn. And I also like that Auburn has Bama the next week. So maybe double look ahead factor can kind of X each other out. We have that going for us. Peyton Thorne, here's the thing about him that keeps him a viable option. He is faster than you think he is. He can actually run. He has some decent instincts running. But the bad thing about Peyton Thorne that I've always noticed about him is for some reason he gets like happy feet or like trigger happy. Whenever it's like a clutch situation, he throws an untimely pick, fumbles the ball, does something goofy, but maybe maturity helps him with that. It's a scary game, but yeah, I respect you picking Auburn there. It makes a lot of sense. But here we go. Big one. We've talked about it already. We didn't make our picks on this game before. The rivalry's back. Texas on the road at A&M. Unfortunately, remember what happened last time. It's been a long time since then. We've had a lot of Twitter back and forth since then. The game is finally back. Here's just like the matchup stuff you're watching. Obviously, it's your O-line versus our D-line. I think our D-line could be maybe the best in the SEC this year. I think it has that upside. And your O-line could be the best in the SEC this year. Quarterbacks, I think they're both really, really good at their best. I think Quinn Ewers travels. Obviously, we talked about it already. Quinn Ewers can be himself on the road. At that point, none of your players are young anymore. Same can be said for us. So honestly, this game could come down to who has the most healthy bell cow commodities by this point in an SEC season. I got to say the home field does it for A&M, though. I'm picking the Aggies in this one, and you're getting your second loss at the end of the year. You're going 10-2, and A&M feels really good after beating Texas to close the year out.
Yeah, that's a good pick. I'm definitely nervous. Like, this is not a layup by any means. This is a very hard game to win.
Don't even say that. In no world is this even close to being a layup.
Was that disrespectful? No, like, I just think this is a very tough situation for Texas, and A&M's going to be really good next year. I mean, I have them like, 9-2? So, yeah, I just think playing in Kyle Field, that's tough. That's very tough. That's a good atmosphere, absolutely. But, you haven't been an A&M fan that long to know that how this thing goes is Texas usually wins all these games against A&M. Like, that's just how it's written in the Bible. And I think I trust Quinn Ewers to lead the Texas Longhorns into Kyle Field and get another win and keep the tradition going. But I'm definitely nervous. We could definitely lose this game, but I'm just going to side with history. I'm going to side with my Longhorns to win this game, but definitely going to be nervous all week for that one. And if we lose, man, I'm going to have to go dark for a while on Twitter and in public in the state of Texas. So I'm taking Texas, but oh man, if we lose, it's going to be terrible.
So you're leaning on some very ancient history here, right? Because if you're talking like 80s to now, this is like a 50-50 rivalry. If you look at the numbers, it's 50-50 over the last 40 years or so.
I'm talking more recent than that. I'm talking
if you want to slice it up, late 2000s, sure. You did have that run there where y'all won a bunch of games in a row. A&M was maybe picking up some momentum later in that matchup. Late 90s, we were beating y'all. So, yes, it goes back and forth. But if we're going history, it just depends on where you want to cut it off. Because it has, I mean, obviously, when we were wearing leather helmets, sure. When every game was in Austin, sure, y'all were winning all of those. But if we're going to go more recent, reasonable history, it's been a pretty close matchup. But honestly, I can't believe he did that. What does history have to do with this game? This is a one-off game on an island, one at a time, baby. And I think A&M comes on top. I had a feeling we would disagree here, and that's totally fine. That's what the rivalry is all about. You go into this game? You change your mind yet? Let's go.
No, I'll be in South Texas on some ranch probably watching it. But if you want to get me a ticket, I'll go with you. But I'm not talking to you if we lose.
Oh, I know. You're going to be putting those headphones on, walking out sad. All right, Matt, that was fun. You have A&M. You thought you had us at 9-2. You had us at 8-3. So you have us going 8-4. You had us losing to Texas. You had us losing to Auburn. You had us losing to Missouri. You had us losing to Florida. And those are all games we could totally lose. The thing about A&M's schedule, I'll keep saying it, so many toss-up games. There's so many games you look at right now can go either way. But like I said, if A&M comes out on top versus Notre Dame, I might reevaluate this schedule a lot and just kind of look at games in a different light, especially if A&M's able to put up close to 30 points. But I have y'all going 10-2. I think when you're evaluating Texas this year, you're operating between like 9 and I don't think you go undefeated. So 9-11 wins. I think 9-11 wins is kind of the most likely outcome for Texas. And obviously, there's a world where you lose to Oklahoma or Georgia or both. There's a world where you slip up to Florida, Arkansas, or Kentucky. I wouldn't say multiple of those, but I think there's a world where you could lose one of those. That Arkansas and Kentucky games really look like they're in weird places. But I'm going to lean in kind of that middle ground. I think you're very talented. I think you're good enough to go 10-2, but not good enough to beat A&M to close the year. But all right, Matt, tell the people one more time where they can find you.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be fun to watch. I can't wait. But we're on Texas Platinum. It's an also YouTube channel. We're a Longhorn channel, but we do talk a lot about the Aggies too. And I think we're pretty fair. Like I think A&M's gonna be really good this year. Honestly, 8-4 sounds worse than I thought. I was thinking 9-3, but somehow I ended up with 8-4.
Yeah, I think A&M could be pretty good and still go 8-4. It's just a weird scheduling. There's some weird schedule angles in here. It's not a difficult schedule. It just hits you consistently, right? That's the thing. And I don't know. I think A&M is going to be good, at least average to good everywhere on the field where I'm at right now, not having seen the team yet. But like offensively, are they upper echelon enough to like carry you in these road games? I do think the defense keeps us in games, but even so, 8-4 is reasonable, especially if you get the wrong injuries. But yeah, that was fun, man. We'll revisit this later and see how we did. But until then, I'll see you later. Gig 'em.
Hook 'em.